let's just take a minute to talk about the cows' diets this spring, because I've mentioned a good bit in videos and I just haven't had a chance to make the video talking about their diet and what we fed the cows this spring and what we did differently really, and the effects of doing things differently, how much better we got on by the changes we made. So obviously this spring access to grass was much better than it normally is down here, so straight away the quality of the diet going to cows was better than it normally is. But on top of that, so the piece of equipment that I hinted at weeks ago, maybe getting for the spring, and having went and looked at one, was a diet feeder. Now I'm not going to mention what type of diet feeder or what the company was or anything. It just didn't happen. The company didn't come through with what they promised, I suppose, in the yard the first day, so it just didn't work out. But we had a beet chopper here, and we had always fed a little bit of beet but really not got enough of a kick out of it, so that's why we were looking at buying a diet feeder to see could we change that and maybe introduce a more complicated diet into the cows this spring. But I have a friend of mine who's a nutritionist with a feed company down the country, and he came on board as our kind of feed advisor this spring. Really appreciate the help he gave us. We were going to buy maize and beet and soya hulls mixed in loads delivered to the yard. They were going to be nearly 4,000 euros a load, and we were going to need a diet feeder to feed them. He kind of had a look around at what we had, found out that we had too much silage in the yard and that had to be used up, and we already had a beet chopper and we weren't going to get a diet feeder. So he basically came back and said, I'll make up a diet where you make the best use of the feed you have in the yard, you're not buying any more, you'll feed enough nuts in the milking parlour, and you'll make use of your beet chopper in front of the cows. So he'll be watching this video now as well, so he's really going to enjoy this praise. I don't like him, I really don't like him. So we got him started off. So this yard here, you know now from watching, anyone who's been watching all spring, we calve all the cows here in this yard, the home farm. So you have to start off slowly then with the feed here. We went in with about 4 kilos fresh weight of beet, chopped beet, out on top of the silage. The silage was about 68 DMD roughly, and they were getting about 4 kilos of 25% protein nut. So he recommended we feed a high protein nut because the beet that we planned on feeding and the silage wasn't overly high in protein either. Now that's a nut that I would never ever have fed to cows. I would never have it had been a push to get me to feed a 20% nut, but a 25% nut I would have said was crazy. So we started them off with that, and we kept an eye on the cows, and their dungs and stuff were very good, and they got in on that diet very well. So we ended up upping it to about 5 to 6 kilos fresh weight of beet. I left the nuts at about 4.5 and silage. Then they started getting a little bit of grass, and again, so that's fresh cows calved down tonight in the milking parlour tomorrow. That's their diet. They really went up on it well. There was no nutritional issues whatsoever, but we couldn't really push it any more than that. So what happened then was we got enough cows calved and we started the second milking parlour. And that was a different ball game altogether, because now we had cows that had been calved for about 5 weeks, had been up on beet for 5 weeks. They went to a second farm and we were able to blow the head off of them. So he altered the diet then again for those cows, and we pushed them on. They were on 5 kilos, they went up on 7 kilos of beet for a few days, kept an eye on them. Then they went up on 10 kilos of fresh weight of beet for a few days and kept an eye on them. Again, no issues with digestive upsets. Then they went from 4.5 kilos to 5 kilos to 6 kilos of 25% nut. So this is all feed levels that we would never ever have fed here. We would be totally reliant on grass, and that's where we've been going wrong on this farm here. Our grass quality and utilisation is always so poor in first round that we weren't supplementing cows hard enough in the yard, and we were losing out on milk. So that was the huge change that we made this year, was we just fed the cows more. So those cows, the grass then increased and increased, but we kept the beet where it was and we kept the nuts where they were, and all we reduced was the amount of silage going into the diet. And the cows kept climbing and climbing and climbing. And those cows down there now have peaked this week, actually, at the last couple of loads, have went over 2.4 kilos of milk solids. Milk solids that we would never have ever got to here or sold out of here before. So the home farm then, we were kind of restricted here because there's still fresh cows going in, but as the number of fresh cows going in and the regularity of fresh cows going in reduced as calving progressed, we upped it to, they're getting between 4.5 and 5 kilos of nuts here now, and they go up to about 6 or 7 kilos of beef fresh weight. Now you will see fresh cows kind of take 2 or 3 days to adjust to that. They'll be a little bit off after the calf, maybe 2 days after the calf, off for about 2 days, and then they go ahead. So we were absolutely at the limit here. But these cows here peaked at 2.25 kilos of milk solids, and they're sitting around 2 there now at the minute. Cow type obviously plays a bit of a role. There's much bigger, milkier cows gone to the other farm. All the heifers are here. All the smaller, handier, crossbred size cows are here. So over 2.4 kilos of milk solids peak on the rented farm, over 2.2 peak here. All because we fed the cows well in the yard. Now if we had have invested in a diet feeder, we would have just said to the diet feeder, done that first, and we'd have justified paying all that money for a new diet feeder. And all we just needed was some help doing up the diets, know how far and how hard we could push the cows, use the equipment that we already had in the yard, which is the beet chopper, and we had a lot of silage on hand, so it was going to be stupid to buy in any extra feed, and feed them in nuts in the milking parlour, feed the right amount of protein, and the cows here just really responded to that. So far this year, and the grass then helped because the silage went reduced week on week, and the grass went up, and the quality of the grass increased week on week. So everything kind of lined up here, that the grass kicked in where it should be doing, but we haven't had it for the last 3 or 4 years in the spring. But it kept up with it, and it kept the cows really on that high curve, pushed them up to a very high peak. So I think on the rented farm this year, when you go on to the co-op page, we're over 60% more milk sold down there this year so far, and there's 10 less cows milking down there currently than there was this time last year. And here we're at about 40% more milk sold this year so far, and there's not more cows here either than last year. So look, we didn't complicate the system. We didn't make it very difficult. The labour, Paul would bring this tractor and beet chopper with him to milk on the second farm, because the beef was tipped in the rented farm, the silage pit there, so the beef was tipped there. He'd scoop up the beef and feed his cows down there, wash out the milking parlour, they'd have the beef het, and then he'd show him out, and then he comes over here. I'm still milking because there's more cows milking here, it takes longer to milk here. I'd still be milking, I'd be just about finished up, I'd be washing out. When he'd arrive with the tractor and beet chopper here, he'd feed the cows here with the beet, and everyone was kind of done at the same time. So there was no extra labour, not much more cost in running diesel and an extra tractor on a feeder or anything. So that was the system for feeding this spring. If anyone has any more questions about it or feel like I left out anything there, please put it in the comments. But I've been meaning to fill everyone in on what we did here this spring differently than any other year, and how it worked for us. And the bottom line is, we didn't do anything much more different than we've done any other spring, but we fed more of everything, and it more than paid for itself in milk. The cows responded really well. And by the way, it's not a brand new fancy beet chopper that we have either. I think we have this 3 years now, and we paid about $1,000 for it. You'd want to be careful walking past it, or you wouldn't have any clothes left on you, but she does the job. Another nearly 20 mil of rain yesterday, so it looks like April might have started off like June, but it's definitely ending like April. This is slop now again for a few days. Sure, it soaks up a bit. Splash, splash, splash everywhere you walk. You'll also see there from that clip that we're struggling to build covers for the cows still. I don't know what's going on really. There was a discussion group yesterday, and everyone was struggling to build up covers. No one in the group had growth above 40 roughly for the last week. So everyone is kind of growing less than demand. So I'd want to get his arse in gear now. So it would, so we're still taking, not much has changed. I do a grass walk today, but we're still taking in ground that I would have liked to have for heifers, so grazing at night time. and those lower covers like what I walked through there now, they're going in on that by day still. But third round is coming very fast, but obviously there's no grass on it either because it's only grazed a few days. Second round it was grazed, like, I'll just show you actually here. There's the field of third round there. Serious grass, not much on it obviously, and that's the field of third round there. If we get a bit of heat, you know, it's only 3 degrees again this morning. If we get this heat that's promised, the third round stuff could overtake what's left of second round. It's a strange year so far. I also need to get a bit of fertiliser out. I was hoping to spread it today, but the water sitting on top of the soil today, I think spreading fertiliser would be a very bad idea. So we might push that out to tomorrow, maybe Friday. Need to get calves out as well. But the ground is too wet. Calves would want dry ground to be able to lie on outside because of cold night. And lying on wet ground is one sure way to have sick calves when they go out. The weather's kind of delaying us now. We had got so much work done because the weather was so good. It's delaying us a little bit now with jobs we want to get done, but it'll all be sorted by the end of the week anyway. Things are after turning difficult here. There's no point in saying that they aren't. It's wet in places, like very wet. Jeez, it's a sad looking place this morning here. It's crazy, we've had the very best spring we've probably ever had here. And today, every bit as wet as it was this day last year, after having the worst spring we had probably ever. I don't know, it's crazy. I'll just show you a picture of or video of the field here. So it's hard to see in the video, but you know, that's not overly green. Out there, you can probably see how yellow it is. And then that one out here then kind of wasn't really grazed or half grazed, half poached. Also yellow, water everywhere. You know, it nearly looks, the place nearly looks as sad as it did this week last year. We just have to struggle on with it. There was like another 15 mil last night. Now the rain is to be gone today and gone for the week, but there's plenty of damage done now. So we have a combination of factors here then where growth has slowed because our soils are saturated and waterlogged. Everywhere you walk there's a film of water along top of the ground. That means there's no oxygen getting into the roots, and that's what's making the place yellow. There's also a bit of nitrogen lost because there's so much water there. So what would have went out on last round, usually to be a reserve sitting there in the soil for growth now, and that looks like it's gone. That's why the place has gone so yellow overnight. And yeah, utilization is going to go down. So when we measure grass and say, you know, there's 4 grazing on that paddock, well, there's only going to be 3 or 3.5, which means you end up going through around a good bit faster and wasting grass, which will be sitting there next round uneaten but of very low quality. So it has a knock-on effect. Third round grazing, come on Gerd, third round grazing on some paddocks now won't be as good as third round grazing won't be as good as second round on some fields, which is frustrating because that's when it's during breeding time. So we'll just have to keep them fed in the parlour is all we can do really. Excuse the drastic change now. A lot of hair after being got rid of today. I feel lighter. We're just here with the R1s or maiden heifers, or R2s, maiden heifers. No, R1s. They're down here in the field I was talking about where it was split into 6 paddocks, 3 on this side and 3 on that side. So they're kind of, this is their home now for the summer while they're being bulled. There's an ocean of grass around. It is wet over here now, like everywhere after last night's rain. Go quiet, aren't you? You can see what grass is ahead of them there. So the cows are taking the first 2 of the 6. They're going into one of them tonight. And then these heifers have the next 4 paddocks, and then they can kind of go into 2 more out there. So look, there's loads of ground here for the summer just to rotate them around. And they're happy, they're doing really well. But I don't think I've ever seen heifers here as big before the bull went home. Before, they'd usually be like this one behind me here now, should be close to that when the bulls will be finished normally. So I think we should get on very well with heifers this year, fingers crossed. Just letting the cows into here to the paddock that I spoke about earlier, the front 2 in the field that the heifers are in. This is kind of the furthest away that we have to walk cows, and they left the yard, when did they leave the yard? About 15 minutes ago, and we have to cross the road. So about 20 minutes, we'll bring them in the morning. They're always faster going out because they're eager to get back to fresh grass. So 20 minutes to bring them in, maybe 25 including crossing the road. So it's not too bad. We don't do it all year long, so you know, you get over it at the minute with the way things are. But just today was an unbelievable day of weather. We've had wind and sunshine here, and the whole place is starting to dry out, which is good. And heifers in a ball at the bottom. Just quickly on the grass this week, there's not much to talk about really with grass this week, so I won't take up too much of the video. Home farm first, I'll just put the figures up here. The wedge, you can see everything is up and touching the line, some stuff above the line. We'll start pulling out supplement feed now as fast as we can during the week, next week I'd imagine. Just, I'm cautious because that looks good. We've had an awful lot of rain since, and you probably won't hear me with the wind now, it's still behind the van here. We've had lots of rain since, and I just see some paddocks are quite yellow and a little bit slow. So I'm going to walk again tomorrow, but tomorrow the video will be out, so I won't have that included in it. But just that's as the grass stood at the start of the week. So wedge looks good here. And then if you look at our figures, then average farm cover is up over 690 there, I think. That's including these 2 massively high covers behind me now. If I was to take these out, basically I wouldn't be touching the line with any of the rest of the paddocks, and my average farm cover would be a good bit lower. So that's hence why I've left them in. When they're grazed out, then it's going to be a very different looking wedge because everything else will have caught up, and that's what you'll all see in next week's video. So it's kind of much of the same. Continue grazing. These are the last 2 first round paddocks of grass where the cows are going in this evening. They're the 2 big high covers there at the front. They're small areas, they're less than a hectare each, and we need them. So that's kind of as it was last week, other than you can see from growth and demand there, we're growing more than demand now. We're not growing 70. Again, anything with a high cover on grew a lot. Anything with very little cover on it didn't grow as much because it's waterlogged this week, not because it was cold. That has been cold and dry up until now, and it was waterlogged last week. That has kind of switched it off. If we go to the rented farm, I'll put the figures for it up here. You can see the wedge here. Again, everything above the line there. Supplement has come out there, beat is done on that farm. It's pretty much done here. And the nuts will come back along during the week because we're growing way above demand up there, so we need to get demand up. We did add 10 more cows up there since I walked that, so that will change figures for next week as well. Average farm cover is high, growth is way above demand. All the lines, or all the paddocks are above the demand line. So that's why there's not much time to spend talking about this week, because it's kind of as it was last week, but heading in a better direction than than it has been. So it'll be more interesting next week because I'll fill you in on what we're feeding the cows, how we've pulled the supplement down. Maybe there'll be some paddocks put out for silage. That'll be all next week's issue, or the week after, whenever we get to talk about it. So that'll be it for today's video. If you haven't already, remember, please click the subscribe button now. If you like the video at any point, click the like button as well. Both of those things really help our channel out a lot. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and we'll talk to you again next week.